Question, Lord Jameson.
I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, we've given the sector a clear timeline for reform in our implementation roadmap. Ahead of Phase 1 of implementation in May, we have already published guidance for landlords and local councils and launched our communications campaign using social media, mainstream media and partners to raise awareness. We have also allocated £18.2 million in new burdens funding to local councils in 25-26, alongside funding for the justice system and Shelter's expert housing advice line.
My Lords, I declare my interest as a councillor in Central Bedfordshire. Can I thank the Minister for her response? Unfortunately, landlords are voting with their feet, exiting the market in ever higher numbers, 93,000 in 2025 and a forecast 110,000 this year, according to the Black and White Bridging Report. The English Private Landlord Survey reports 31% of landlords are looking to reduce their portfolio and 16% to exit completely. Can the Minister explain how this helps those desperately looking for a home to rent?
We know landlords need time ahead of the implementation to make sure they're compliant with the reforms, and that's why we've published a full package of landlord guidance on gov.uk to support the first phase of the Renters' Rights Act on the 1st of May this year, including draft written statement of terms, so landlords know what information must be included in new tenancy agreements. And we're continuing to work constructively with the landlord sector. Officials recently spoke to over 1,000 landlords and letting agents at a webinar organised by Rightmove and attended by the National Residential Landlords Association conference to speak directly to landlords impacted by the reforms.
Master of the Rolls, who oversees the efficiency of our civil justice system, has recently said that the Act creates an incentive for tenants to appeal every increase in rent to the first-tier tribunal, since even if the appeal fails, the increase in rent will not be backdated. Ministers have said that they will intervene if the tribunal becomes, quote, overwhelmed, but in response to a written question have said that they don't hold data on the average time the tribunal takes to process rent appeal cases. So how will the noble lady, the Minister, assess whether the tribunal has become overwhelmed so as to prevent the whole system falling into chaos with longer and longer delays in the tribunal?
We're working very closely with the Judiciary and the Ministry of Justice. We had lots of discussion about this during the passage of the bill. We want to ensure that the first-tier tribunal does have the capacity to deal with any increase in cases as a result of the rent increase changes. In the property chamber, work is progressing to increase capacity, as well as reviewing resource and working practices in readiness for that increase in demand. And to ensure long-term sustainability, we have concluded that there's a case for the use of an alternative body or mechanism to make initial rent determinations, and we are continuing to work with partners across government to develop a rent determination function as quickly as possible, and hopefully that process will take some of the pressure from the first-tier tribunal.
First of all, before I ask my question to the noble lady, the Minister, can I congratulate the Government Chief Whip on continuing on the excellent daily list to continue to refer to His Majesty's Government and have no truck with this nonsense rebranding to the UK Government. And long may it continue. Can I ask the noble lady, the Minister in His Majesty's Government, does she think that the changes in the Renters' Rights Act are going to lead to more houses being available for rent or fewer?
I think it will lead to better conditions for renters, and it will remove some of the barriers that stop people from renting, as well as those that can prevent renters from maintaining a tenancy. We have banned rental bidding, levelling the playing field for renters. Landlords will no longer be able to encourage prospective renters to stretch themselves beyond their means. They can't discriminate against a prospective renter because they're on benefits or have children. Rent increases will be limited to once a year at market rate, with tenants able to challenge unfair rent increases at first-tier tribunal. And we think that the work we've done with landlords and with tenant bodies, and we've done both through the whole passage of the bill, means that we've got a fair system that rewards good landlords, rewards the tenants, but makes sure that bad landlords are held to account for the bad practices that they've had in place.
Thank you. My Lords...
We have plenty of time. The Lib Dem bench, then we'll have the Labour benches.
Thank you. My Lords, turning to tenants, a group of people close to my heart. Now, they have been promised that the Renters' Rights Act will transform their security and do so from May the 1st of this year. But they will be relying on local authorities to enforce those rights. But, Minister, there is still no evidence from government that they have the staffing or capacity to use the new powers in the Act effectively, which they gained at the back end of last year. So I ask the Minister, what confidence can the House have that on May the 1st, tenants will not once again be left with protections only on paper that they cannot realistically enforce? And without that data, how does the government know that the new burdens funding designed to support enforcement activity is actually sufficient?
I was with a group of over 300 councillors at the weekend, mainly council leaders and other councillors. They were very pleased to see the Renters' Rights Act coming into power on the 1st of May. Local councils, of course, and the Noble Lady is quite right to say, will play a crucial role in making sure that this Act actually works on the ground. To help councils build enforcement capacity, we've provided new burdens funding for 25-26 and a further funding allocation for 26-27, which will be confirmed early this year. We've also funded the Operation Jigsaw network to deliver bespoke training on the Act so councils understand their new responsibilities, and detailed guidance covering the enforcement measures, like the new investigatory powers, has already been published.
But, my Lords, hasn't it been the case over recent years that many young couples have been outbid by private landlords for properties and therefore have been forced to rent and denied the opportunity for owner occupation? Yeah. Shouldn't we, if these properties are now being put on the market and available for couples, shouldn't we be welcoming that, as they will then have a real chance to have a home of their own? Yeah.
We want to improve all parts of the sector and make sure that home buying is available for young people, as well as making the rental market fairer for them. And I did have a big roundtable last week with a whole group of the sector, so agents, conveyancers, the legal profession, financial services, developers, seeing what we can do to make it both a faster process and a more accessible process for young people to be able to realise the dream that many of us were able to of buying our own home.
My Lords, I declare my interest in the private rented sector in Buckinghamshire and Lincolnshire. The Minister refers to the Renters' Rights Act as producing better conditions in the private rented sector. Surely this very much depends upon the ongoing consultation on the home energy model, methodology for assessing existing dwellings and producing new energy performing certificate metrics. And that concludes, I gather, at the end of March. Will the government commit to publishing its response and detailed guidance within 6 months of that date, so that landlords can have the clarity and confidence to prepare and budget for the necessary improvements?
Well, if the Noble Lord is referring to the minimum energy efficiency standards implementation, we have published our response to the consultation on minimum energy efficiency standards in the private rented sector. We've listened to the voices from across that sector. The response confirms our decision to set new regulations in the private rented sector for landlords to meet EPC-C or equivalent by the 1st of October 2030 for all tenancies unless a valid exemption applies. And the consultation also confirms that landlords will not be required to spend more than £10,000 per property. Exemptions will last for 10 years.
Isn't housing crisis being caused? It's nice to see my fan club still here. Yeah. Isn't the present crisis caused by the Tory government selling off social housing, which has lent to a shortage of housing and also has pushed up the benefit system, costing billions of pounds to the taxpayer.
Well, my noble friend puts his finger on one of the causes of the housing crisis. There are many. Not building enough homes was a fundamental cause for that as well. We have taken steps already to address some of the issues around the right to buy and making sure that councils get the funding back for houses that they sell under right to buy. And I think the other steps we're consulting on, and we'll bring something forward later in the year. But I think the Renters' Right Tax is the biggest package of reforms to the private rented sector in nearly 40 years and will improve the sector for 11 million private renters and 2.3 million landlords in England.
Second oral question, Lord Goodman of Wickham.
I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, an estimated 309,600 net additional homes have been built this Parliament, but we do recognise the need to push further. We're driving progress through bold planning reforms, including the Planning and Infrastructure Act 25 and a record £39 billion investment in social and affordable house building. Investment in construction skills, our £16 billion National Housing Bank, rapid transformation of the Building Safety Regulator under the leadership of my noble friend Lord Rowe, and initiatives like the New Homes Accelerator programme will remove barriers and ensure we build the homes we need.
I'm grateful to the Minister for that answer, but up to 100,000 new homes could be built were the government to scrap the old, outdated EU-era nutrient neutrality regulations. So can I ask the Minister whether or not the government will bring in new regulations to protect the environment and scrap these old ones which are helping to deny young people and families the homes they desperately need?
Very good. New measures were introduced in the Planning and Infrastructure Act to make sure that we deal effectively with nutrient neutrality, and we have to do that without causing the impact on house building that had been done under the previous government. So we've taken the steps we need to take. We have the Nature Restoration Fund now, and developers can work as part of that to make sure that they are able to deliver the homes and meet the needs of the environment at the same time.
My Lords, in order to deliver these homes, are most of the local authorities cooperating with the government, particularly in preparing local plans, allocating lands, speeding up planning decisions, working with the developers and the communities and so on? Is the local authority cooperating with the government to deliver these 1.5 million homes in this Parliament?
As I stated, I would remind my noble friend that we do see our partnership with local authorities as critical to delivering the housing numbers that we need. The Planning and Infrastructure Act that we passed last year will accelerate house building while preserving important environmental protections, making sure we get the consenting process speeded up, a more strategic approach to nature recovery, improving certainty in the decision-making and the planning system. We've supported local authority planning capacity with funding and training that's needed. So we are working together with our partners in local authorities to make sure that we get this moving as quickly as possible.
The Minister mentions that local authorities are vital to production of homes, and the Minister's right. But how is it that the Labour-controlled Greater London Authority have only produced a third of what they themselves had as a target? And secondly, does this government understand that young people want to own their own homes, a large number of them, and where's a Help to Buy scheme? By all means have a Labour Help to Buy, different to the Conservative one, but surely both those 2 points would take us at least to provide some decent housing for people who are desperate to have a home of their own.
First of all, I would say we've introduced a whole package of support working with our colleagues in London to make sure they are supported and helped to get building with the homes they need. And under the previous question, perhaps the Noble Lord heard me say that I'm working very closely with a whole partnership of people from across the sector to work on developing the support that young people will need to get into house building, including working on a new ISA that will help with this, and making sure that the whole industry is focused on freeing up the system so that it is possible for young people to buy homes. And it was really good to hear when I spoke to the sector last week that both Lloyds and Santander have brought in very low start mortgage packages just last week. I'm very pleased to see that, and I hope that will help some of our young people to get out of high cost renting and to be able to buy their own properties.
My Lords, the 1.5 million new homes is only part of the big housing jigsaw. It's about quality as well as quantity. It's about regeneration as well as new build. But all this is meant to come together in the government's long-term national housing strategy. This was due out about a year ago. Can I ask the Noble Baroness, the Minister, when will we see the national housing strategy?
Well, I'm grateful to the Noble Lord for his patience on the long-term housing strategy. We will be publishing that in the first quarter of this year.
Sorry, thank you. Obviously not quick enough today. My Lords, research by Crisis and the National Housing Federation actually found that we needed to build 90,000 social homes a year to tackle the current homelessness situation. And we know that councils are actually spending around £2.8 billion a year on temporary accommodation. Minister, will the government commit to a specific target for social housing within their overall 1.5 million homes target, alongside a detailed pathway to actually deliver these homes? And we all know that it's that end of the housing market that is the real logjam in the housing crisis. And picking up what the Noble Lord said with regard to London, will the government confirm to looking again at its disappointing decision to slash the proportion of social homes required for all new developments in London? Yeah.
Well, the target for the £39 billion spend that we've got is that 60% of that will be social housing. The whole amount will be spent on social and affordable housing. I think that's the most money that's been invested in social and affordable housing for a very long time, and I'm very proud of that record. In relation to her question on London, having discussed this extensively with London and London councils, the important thing is to get the house building moving in London. London will decide the percentage of social housing. We're working closely with them on that.
Lords, my Lords.
Turn the Labour benches, then we'll come to the Conservative benches.
Thank you. My Lords, my noble friend, the Minister, has outlined very clearly what a great opportunity this target is for not only local jobs but local training schemes and use of local materials in building the houses. She's mentioned local authorities, but what discussions are also being held with developers and house builders to ensure that they do commit to using local labour, putting on proper training schemes and using local materials whenever they can?
It's very important that as we go through this process of building more homes, we also create the jobs that can go alongside that. And we've been working very closely with the sector, particularly with the Developers Skills Group, to make sure that we invest in skills as we go along this path of building. And they've been very supportive to the extent of investing £140 million in skills alongside the skills funding the government's put in. So they are very much committed to this. And we really welcome the Home Builders Federation statement in July 2024, looking to rapidly increase the pace at which homes are built, deliver high-quality, affordable homes the country needs, and provide the skilled jobs we know we need in order to deliver that.
My Lords, as the Minister said earlier, only a little over 300,000 additional homes have been delivered in the first 18 months of this government. Given their target of 1.5 million, that means they're going to have to deliver at the rate of 342,000 a year. Previously, in response to my noble friend Baroness Scott of Brybrook, the Minister said they would achieve this by speeding up existing planning permissions. Given that housing starts continue to run well below the average rate of the previous Conservative government, Can the Minister say when this will happen?
It ill behoves the government that caused the housing crisis to be pressing us on the steps we've already taken, very significant steps, as I've already outlined, to move this forward. We updated the National Planning Policy Framework. Of course, it's early yet to see an impact from those changes. We expect to see the effects of those feeding through into a higher number of homes granted permissions later in the year. But new figures do show already we're seeing some green shoots of recovery, with a 29% increase in housing starts compared to 2024. Now, we know it's going to take time to turn the tide after decades of underinvestment and a failure to build the homes and infrastructure we needed to keep up with demand. So we do expect house building to ramp up, particularly in the later years of the Parliament, as our reforms take effect. And we will continue on our mission to deliver those 1.5 million homes.
My Lords, may I return again to the question of social housing? Since 1990, the UK's population has grown by around 20%, an additional 12 million people. In that same period, our stock of social housing has not grown but contracted, round figures by nearly 10%. We now have fewer than 400,000 units of social housing than we had in 1990. So may I ask the Minister precisely how many additional units of social housing do we expect to have by 2030?
Well, the government's committed to the biggest increase in social and affordable housing in a generation. That £39 billion social and affordable housing programme I spoke about will combine the best elements of previous programmes with new design elements to make sure we maximise the delivery we want to see. And that will enable providers to build the types of homes the country needs. An ambition to deliver around 300,000 homes with at least 60% social rent. And as well as that, we've provided long-term income stability for social housing providers with a 10-year rent settlement, which will help to give them the stability and the confidence they need to invest